I want to bring in Republican Mike Gallagher, Congressman, Wisconsin, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Sir, good morning to you, and thank you for being with us today. Do you get a sense that this is an all-hands-on-deck operation for NATO, for President Biden? Because we weren't sure Putin was going to go in. We didn't know if he was going to go into the southeast. We didn't know if he would use his military encampments in Belarus, and he did all of it. So you're left to wonder, what will he do next? So the question again, are we up to this?
Well, I think the lesson is we should not underestimate Vladimir Putin's ambitions and his ruthlessness, as we've consistently done throughout this crisis. We've told ourselves a fantasy that maybe this would be a minor incursion, maybe the threat of sanctions alone would be enough to deter Putin. Clearly, that strategy failed. So this should be a massive wake-up call to the Biden administration, as well as all NATO member states. I appreciate the president's call for reinforcing Article 5, for bringing further hard power to NATO's Eastern Front, but that's not going to help the Ukrainians on the ground right now that are fighting for their lives. You know, your previous segment talked about the domestic opposition Putin is facing. Putin clearly wants a quick and costless victory en route to Kyiv. Our job right now is to make this the opposite, to turn this into a painful and long slog for Putin, turn it into his version of Afghanistan that expedited the downfall of the Soviet Union after they executed an invasion in 1979. We still have options. What we lack is will and courage to execute those options.
So, Congressman, Amy Kellogg just reported on this report that apparently Russia and the Ukrainians are saying, well, maybe we could talk, or the Russians are saying, well, maybe we'll send a delegation and talk. That would basically end in regime change, right? And a puppet regime would be put in. If this idea of talks are on the table, should Zelensky do that?
Well, I think the list of demands from Putin would be long. One would be that Zelensky has to leave. Two, Ukraine would have to forego any future attempt to join NATO. And then three, Ukraine would have to recognize Russia's sovereignty over Crimea, and as well as the independence of the Donbass region. That would be a massive, I think, victory for Vladimir Putin. But Dana, quite honestly, I'm concerned that his appetite doesn't end there. Given how limited resistance he's faced thus far from the West, why wouldn't Putin try and take over all of the country and use it as a staging ground to threaten NATO member states, particularly the Baltic states, particularly Poland, which is why we need to be deploying certain weapon systems to NATO's Eastern Front, especially intermediate range ballistic ground launch missiles, which does make Putin nervous. That would make him very nervous if we did that. But I fear Putin is only just getting started. And again, we have to wake up. This is a ruthless thug we are dealing with. And we may tell ourselves a fantasy that wars like this can't happen in the 21st century, but obviously that is not true. It's a dangerous world, and American hard power is the only thing that preserves the peace.
You have seen reports that we're not privy to. How would you characterize what you're hearing behind the scenes about what his intentions could be?
Well, I think the evidence of the last 24 hours is that he's going for the full thing. This isn't a minor incursion. And I think he's long wanted to restore some semblance of the old Russian Empire, as well as just drive a wedge through all NATO countries. And it's been astounding how successful he's done that in terms of weaponizing the leverage he has with Europe's energy dependence on Russia. It's why we need a complete overhaul of our counterproductive energy policy. The other thing I would say behind the scenes, there's a lot of bipartisan concern in Congress over this sanctions-only strategy. If sanctions have failed thus far to deter Putin, what gives the administration confidence that even enhanced sanctions are going to have any effect going forward? A lot of members, a lot of my colleagues are asking questions as to why the Biden administration hasn't been willing to kick them off the SWIFT system, for example, why they aren't willing to go after their energy sector. But at the end of the day, sanctions alone won't do much. We need hard power. That's what it all comes down to. And we need to do whatever we can to put hard power in Putin's path.
Congressman Mike Gallagher, thank you. We appreciate your time.